other countries. Like, all of those things affect America, but we really need to kind of focus on what is best for America interest. And it really kind of drove home because of the fact that in the past, and when I was younger, my parents, baby boomers, it was all about creating things. They were factory workers. It was all about, like, we made stuff. We're from the state of Michigan, so it was all about, General Motors and building cars, and like, you had good paying jobs and things of that nature.
You could support a family on one income.
Yeah, and it was like. And just to kind of realize, like, we don't create anything really anymore in
drama
in our country.
The Kardashians.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, that is what we're getting, known for.
TikTok
and
followers.
And it's
videos.
like how ingrained that is. I mean, you have to be able to connect it to the CCP, like you just do. And it's just so interesting on how it is happening globally, but how it's also just happening from, even your local aspects, like the drama and things like in these commission meetings and
the city council meetings, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, and city council meetings and like public comment, like the things
that was spicy today.
Yeah, so it's like it's just interesting. So it's like we want to be able to build on, local politics and local issues but this drama of the national stuff brings so much attention, you know, and it's like, well, how do, so like my first thing is like, well, how do we fix it here? Like, what do we do and how do we get involved? And I just want to, I'm going to give a brief little shout out to Bill Ricketer. He's running for State House 90, right? I think it's 90.
Someone correct us in the chat if we're
yeah,
wrong.
if that's wrong. but like this guy is out getting to know people and he's working on what the local issues are, and it is so refreshing to see a candidate kind of just be like, hey, like, I'm here for you. We need to work on this together, and I'm going to put forth things that are going to make things better. And it's just so refreshing. It's just so awesome. And he didn't pay me to say that, I promise.
But you can, Bill, if you want to pay us to say more.
Exactly.
Just let us know.
Bill, I expect a text. But I just adore him and his approach, and he's got such a good team behind him, and it's just really awesome. And so I'm hoping that more candidates kind of follow that lead. And if we could get just a handful in Broward County and Palm Beach County to follow that lead and kind of do that thing, like, we would have just such amazing opportunities to just really make these counties bright red and with a purpose. It's like our leaders steer the ship. That's what I mean to say. Our leaders steer our ship. So when it's going off kilter, it's up to us to correct and put leaders in that are going to steer it in the way that we want to go. And so, we have a few we have some good candidates out there. But Bill Ricketer is just being awesome at that for sure. So I also just kind of want to mention too, like, voter registration.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, I was watching Dan Bongino. I think he was talking.
Don't get dead.
Yeah, don't get dead.
Don't get dead.
Don't get dead.
Don't get dead.
So I think it was yesterday's episode, maybe the day before. But he was talking about, the importance of voter registration. And we've talked about how the Republican Party is really getting behind, the vote by mail ballots and things of that nature. But I hope most people have realized that they manipulate elections through the voter registration rolls. That's how they do it. And and Dan Bongino put it so clearly. He's like, Democrats don't care who votes. They just care that they have the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, he just articulated it so well, and I can't do it as well as he did by any means. But I do highly encourage you to watch that episode. From it aired this week. I'm not sure which one, but I can look it up and I can put it somewhere if I need to. But he basically was like, Republicans are really about earning the vote, getting the vote.
We work for it.
Yeah. We want people to be registered. We want them to be educated, and we want them to vote for, good policies. Where the Democrats, they don't care. So as long as you are registered to vote, they're going to find a ballot to put in your
Put
name.
your name on.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and I see how they did it in Palm Beach County. When I did a lot of the canvassing work. So when I first got involved, we did some canvassing work, and my job was to kind of see how many it was 5 or more voters in a single household, if that made sense or not. So I got the address, found out how many, and then I looked up the house like on Zillow, and was like, there were so many homes that were like a 1-bedroom, 1-bath in like Riviera Beach that had 6 voters.
Ooh.
I knocked on some doors like that with Defend Florida.
Did people
fall of
answer?
21. So, yeah.
And what happened when they would answer?
We would ask if so-and-so lived there.
And what was people's response when you did that?
Well, some of them didn't speak English.
Mm.
And they would say, nobody lives here. Nobody by that name lives here.
So then do you strike it from the roll?
Yeah, but like Jessica referred to last episode, 2 episodes ago, like we would submit affidavits to the supervisor of elections, but
Do we know if it actually, we don't know if it actually
correct
goes anywhere and does
Yeah.
anything and removes that person from the
and
role.
knowing Joe Scott, the Broward supervisor of elections, he
Probably not.
probably
He's probably like, let's add one more.
he probably wasn't like too enthusiastic about lifting a finger to help a group like Defend Florida. But there was I was down in like East Hollywood, and there was like 6 Alex Rodriguez's all registered to the same address or whatever. Yeah.
Well, and they did
And they're different people. I mean,
Supposedly.
different people.
yeah.
So I had 6 ballots.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And they did this through the ERIC system. That was a big
Which is
culprit of
gone.
it, which is gone. So I think it's going to help. And I know, like, the new legislative ordinance or law that, Secretary of Elections need to clean up their rolls every 90 days. Things of that nature, I think, is going to make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And we have an opportunity as, independent voters and Republican voters to really hit it hard and be able to be successful because of all of these things that have kind of worked.
We've been given
our
tools, to use a term that I hate. The tools in your tool belts, reminiscent of COVID days. If you were there, we have all these tools in our tool belt.
The Swiss cheese model.
Oh my god!
So the episode you're thinking of from Dan Bongino is either 2072 or 2071.
Thank
All
you.
right, there
Thank
it
you.
is.
Thanks, Stu.
Thanks,
Stu.
I forgot to introduce Stu. Stu's here, guys.
Hi.
He gets a seat at the table this week.
I know he's not shoved in the corner.
He's not sticking
which, by
behind
the
me.
way, we want to give a shout out and a thank you to John Brody for joining us last
Yes.
episode.
Awesome.
We
So
had a
much fun.
great
Awesome.
time. I mean, I don't even think I knew what time it was. The time
Yeah.
flew by so fast. So hopefully you enjoyed that episode. Definitely let us know. Give us some feedback. If you have any questions or you have questions for John, we can definitely get those to him. So thank
Yes,
you,
for
John,
sure.
for coming, and for Stu for sitting in the corner. We put baby in the corner.
And we will be having additional guests.
Yes. So
candidates,
speaking of good
elected
candidates,
officials.
we do have just a quick advertisement for our next episode, which is September 7th. We're going to have Brian Stenberg, who is running for City Council in Boca, seat D. So, so make sure you tune in for that. Get your questions ready. If you live in the city or you just want to have you have questions about how to run for a local office, get those ready and mark your calendars.
I have a stat for you guys, just
Okay.
going back to the voter registration.
Yeah.
So, actually, John Brody's campaign manager, Yvette Sarabona, she's working on another campaign now. And they are working the southwest part of the county super hard.
One vote at a time, one
vote
city at a time.
mean,
We're
they-
taking back Broward County,
Well,
baby.
she's actually working on a congressional campaign this go round. Well,
Ooh.
congressional and a city commission down in Pembroke Pines.
Okay.
She's working with 2
Which
candidates.
congressional campaign?
CD 25, Chris Eddy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So she had the numbers by congressional district in Broward, but a total of, or maybe this might be vote by mail, not voter registration. 31,557 Democrat vote by mail requests year to date. 7,685 Republican, 6,653 NPA, and 418 independent. So we
Whoa.
are way behind in Broward, and we have got to get
Wow.
people to secure their ballot. It's not forcing you to go vote with your vote by mail ballot. You can go
Right.
on election day if you want. You can go early vote if you want. But secure that ballot and have it in hand in case something happens. You have to go out of town on election day. You get sick. You can't physically get to the polling place.
And it just makes sure that no one else gets a ballot with
Yes.
your name on it and decides, oh, this person
Or
thinks
can
I
request
think
it
they
in
should
your
vote
name.
Democrat.
Yeah.
Right.
Change the
Right.
address, whatever the case may be.
So
Yeah.
this is how shenanigans. I mean, listen, shenanigans are nothing new. I grew up, my mom was always talking about how the Democrats were cheating. They voted dead people. I mean, this was like something I grew up, the mantra that I grew up with. It's so funny because I think it was 2020, I was talking to a friend of mine who, she grew up more independent. She's more Republican. She's a Republican now, but we were talking about like cheating and dead people. She's like, they're just dead people. Blah. She's all like, I was like, you didn't know that? That's like, I knew that when I was like 10. She's like, no, they do that. I was like, yeah, they
By all
find
means
these ballots.
necessary.
By all means necessary. So
Right.
This
And
is-
they
we
only
know they're
care,
gonna do this.
They only care about counting ballots. They
Yeah.
don't care
About
about
the issues, persuading voters, any of that.
No.
Yeah,
because it's all about power.
And they don't care if the person that's assigned to that ballot was the one that voted.
No.
They just care if it has a D on it.
Right.
Like that's
Because it's
all,
power.
all they care about.
Mhm.
It's all they care about. And talking about shenanigans, I think it's very interesting that the Palm Beach County School Board put spring break the same week as municipal elections.
Yeah.
Oh, which is also presidential preference primary.
Yes.
Right. So is that a little shenanigan-y? Is that a word?
Even more so, if you live in Palm Beach County, get your vote by mail ballot, because if you go on vacation or you forget or you decide to do something fun with your kids that day on election day, I know where I'll be on election
Yeah, because
day.
they don't
but
do early voting for municipals.
They
do
don't, but they will
Oh,
because it's a
of
presidential preference primary, which is why they thought they probably wasn't as big of a deal. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm guessing, I don't know, giving them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because people can early vote and they can vote by mail, but still.
But it's like
It's
it's
a little
almost
sketchy.
Yeah, it's almost like manipulating away from election
Wait.
day.
What day is election day?
March 19th.
19th.
That's why. So so just to be fair, spring break in Palm Beach County is always that week. It's that week
Okay.
every year.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All
just
right,
to-
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
I don't know
I'm
anything about that life.
it is always in those later teens.
Yeah.
That's when those.
Yeah.
That's when
And
the break
Broward
is.
spring break is the next week, so
Yes,
it doesn't.
which is also
doesn't
very annoying
conflict.
because
Yeah.
we can't ever play
when
with
you
our
live
friends who
when,
live in
when
Broward.
you live on the edge of the county line.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do anything
Yeah.
with our friends in Broward
Yeah.
because their spring break is different than ours.
Yeah, so
But-
everybody just be aware that the municipal and the presidential preference primary.
We should call that the PPP.
No, that's too confusing.
No, that gives me
Does that give you trauma?
it gives me PTSD for my accounting of the personal protection of the payroll.
Oh,
the
okay.
Payroll
See,
protection plan.
Oh,
Pay-
okay.
Paycheck
Yeah.
protection plan. I don't
Well,
know.
then there's also
Yeah.
It was awful.
Oh, that's PPE.
Yeah.
It was
Protective.
equipment during
Yeah.
COVID.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
All right. Never mind.
yeah.
Never mind. It's just so hard to say.
I
Presidential
know.
preference primary.
I know. So, just be aware, March 19th, this is and Josie's going to talk a little bit about, like local and Abby too, about, our local commission and city municipal, council and commission meetings, because it's so important and nobody votes in these elections and they're the ones that control most of our life. And if anybody's paying attention to what's going on, I'm hearing that our businesses are starting to mask again.
Ugh. Is it even legal in the state of Florida? I didn't think they could force that.
They're not forcing it.
They're not
just-
forcing
They're
it.
putting the signs back
just
up.
people. I just see so many
I
more
know.
people wearing them, and I was like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
happening?
And so it's almost like it's rearing its ugly little head.
Tell you what, I know at least one commissioner on the Palm Beach County Commission that will not allow that to happen in Palm Beach
Wow.
County. So
Yes.
Putting that out there right now.
So it's just very interesting as it feels a little deja vu-ish.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. And so we can get ahead of it, and locally we can make a stand, and we can do things differently by voting in municipal elections and making sure that you are registering. First of all, make sure you're registered to vote. Also, remember that if you are not registered as a primary party, if you keep an NPA, you cannot vote in the presidential preference primary.
You can vote for your municipal
Your
candidates.
municipals.
And if there, well, I guess there won't be in March. Your school board candidate, you can vote in those races, but you cannot vote in a party-specific race.
Yep.
Correct. And so just be aware of that. If you want a voice, switch your registration party so that you can make sure that the your
And
voice
if
is heard.
you have been to the DMV in the last year and gotten a new renewal of your driver's license, double check your registration. Because
that's
they will,
yes.
there's switcherooskies happening. So just make sure if you have gone to the DMV in the last year, if you've moved here, and switch your license to a Florida license, or if you're just gone for your renewal is the right word. Just double check and make sure that that the person behind the counter didn't switch you around.
Yeah, I've heard stories like if you're new to the state and you're moving in and you're transferring your license to Florida, like the default is NPA. Like if you don't know,
it's possible.
if you don't
Yes.
know to ask and specify, they will default you to NPA. So you could have moved, and you could have moved from a state where it doesn't matter. It's an open primary. So like definitely double check that. Go on the Supervisor of Elections website and double check.
We can drop that in the comments. We'll put the website in later maybe, and just
I
that way.
can't remember, but do they ask you if you want to be Republican or
So I think they're
Democrat?
supposed to.
I think they ask you if you want to register to vote, and then on the little screen,
You get to put
I
what you
think
want.
pick. And if you don't pick anything, I think it defaults to an NPA.
But don't forget that we are living in a time where a lot of people do not have morals or ethics, and they are radical, and they are sitting there and they see that thing, the person sitting behind the counter sees through your paperwork come through saying that you're registering yourself as a Republican. How easy would it be for them to switch it? It's not legal. It's not correct. It's not right. But I mean, look at the world we're living in. They're arresting lawyers
Yeah.
for representing someone.
And then as far as Palm Beach County, I think I'm missing a state, but most of the people who have moved to Palm Beach County from out of states are coming from New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Texas,
California.
and California.
I don't know. A lot of people coming from Texas?
Actually, yes.
Really?
Yes, it's one of the top 5. So,
Why are they coming here from Texas?
well, I think because of the border.
Oh, that's true.
If I had to guess, that would be my guess.
I don't know. If you are from Texas or you know someone who's moved here from Texas, please let us know why they chose to live in Florida. I'm very curious.
Yeah, because so I found that very interesting. Texas surprised me too, but like we still have over like 1,000 people a day
Still?
moving here. I believe
We're full.
So yeah, we're full. We're full. So I think it's just very interesting how it all kind of plays out, and it's just very important to register. Make sure that you have your ballot, and it will really help kind of make sure that less shenanigans happen. Even if you don't vote, and I'm not recommending that at all, register to vote and request a mail-in ballot so nobody else can
Vote in your name.
vote in your name. It's let's just do our due diligence, do our part in self-governance, because self-governance is hard. Self-governance is hard. And it's our obligation and duty as citizens to make sure that we leave our country better than we found it. And Marco Rubio touched on this point too. He actually said, he goes, the next generation will be worse off than we are. And maybe even the next generation after that. So this is the first time in like American history that it actually has declined instead of improved and gotten better. And that just, as a mom, and as a citizen, that just makes me sad.
So sad.
Yeah.
I don't know
Just
what kind of
makes me
future.
sad.
I mean, that's why
I think
Why
that's
do
why
what we do?
I was just going to say, I think that's why, like we're at least trying to do our part in educating people and kind of getting involved in doing things. So
I decided when my kids were little and things were starting to happen in like the medical freedom world and things like that, which is what got me into all of this to begin with, is I heard someone say this and I was like, so I can't claim it for myself, but it was very true. They said that I have to be able to look at my children and say that I did everything that I could.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what
Yep.
I think. Even if you don't have kids, it's the
That's
same.
exactly how I feel.
Right. You have family, you have friends, you have nieces,
Yeah.
you have nephews, you have my kids. Like knowing that the investment into our future is not just your own children, but it is the children around us. They're going to be the ones who are going to be taking care of things for you in 20, 30 years, whatever it may be, 40 years. Sorry, my math might be off. But like, it's a little bit scary. So that's depressing. No, I'm just kidding. Let's bring it a little lighter.
So on the good note,
Let's go up. We need an upper right now. Because now this is not strong enough for that
so
conversation.
I know trim notices went out for Palm Beach
Ooh,
County.
Can
and
you
Broward
explain
this
what a
week.
trim notice is, please?
A trim notice is a truth and millage notice. That's the acronym. And it basically explains all the different components of your property tax bill that will hit your mailbox on or around November 1st.
Okay. So
So,
one more time, what's a millage rate?
Millage rate is the tax rate set by the taxing jurisdiction, whether it's county, city, school board, special districts like the Florida Inland Navigation District, which
Children's
is the
Health
intercoastal.
Services or Children's
The hospital
Services,
district.
Hospital districts.
Yeah.
So we did do an episode a couple episodes ago, if you missed it, on taxes, on what millage rates, more in depth on what millage rates are, how to find your taxing districts to see, who's in charge of your money and who's using your money and what they're using it for. So definitely check that out. That was a couple episodes ago. They are posted in our channels. So okay, so trim notices.
Yes, the trim notices came out, and there's much weeping and gnashing of teeth in Broward County. I know on my trim notice, with the exception of two different districts, everybody raised their millage rates.
Wow.
How can they raise their millage rates when people are hurting so bad?
County don't care.
But the
County don't
property
care.
values were so high, so they're
County
still
don't
making
care.
more money.
Yeah. No, school
So
board.
the school board. I know the
school
school board did,
yeah.
right?
School
Well,
board,
Palm Beach County cared because they lowered their millage.
Palm Beach County cared. Broward did not.
Boca cared. We're lowering ours
I
slightly.
mean, they still have to be
I think.
voted on.
Yes,
there are,
ours are
there
still
are
being
meetings
voted-
next
yeah.
month.
So there's meeting next month?
But it can't go higher.
There's-
It can't
I
go
believe-
higher. So just to be clear. So they set the millage rate in Palm Beach County at 4.50. So it can't go higher than that. They could still go lower, but they can't go
Wait,
higher.
so if
than
there's
There are two meetings. They
Okay.
have to have two meetings in September to read, because they're like ordinances.
Yep.
Like you
Okay.
have to have two
Yeah,
meetings
it's
to
two
read the
readings.
ordinances. So I know one of ours is September.
these are at the county
13th.
commission, right?
Pardon?
These are at the county commission
Well, I know the city one is September 13th
for Lighthouse
for
Point.
Lighthouse Point. Everything is listed on your trim notice, and let me pull
So
mine up
check
real
your trim
quick.
notice, because if you have a complaint about what they're doing with your taxes,
Show up at the meeting.
show up at the meeting. Public comment. Most of the time you have to file a card. I don't know all the procedures, but I know usually you have to file a card. So get the agenda. All the agendas should be posted. This is what they look like. I will show you what a city agenda looks like. Right here. They will be posted online, and it'll tell you the ordinance number and where it is in the agenda. Go to the meeting, put your card in, and let your voice be heard.
And be sure to really read consent, because they don't discuss that in.
So let's
in-
But you
explain
can-
what a consent agenda
But you can
is.
comment on the
You
consent
can.
agenda.
You can.
So a consent agenda, so if you take an agenda and you look at it, there's a consent agenda. Consent agenda is a bunch of resolutions and or
It's usually
payments.
how they move all the money around.
It's how they
is
move
in-
the
is
money.
during consent.
And so it's things that they don't want to vote on individual things. If it falls into a certain type of category, they don't have to put it on the agenda as an individual item, and they vote on the consent agenda as one giant yes or no. So if there is something, so read through the consent agendas in your city, in your municipality, in your county, because that is a lot of times where things get slid in.
Mhm.
And you can comment on them. You can contact your representatives about a specific thing, and they can pull it out
I
of
have
the
an
consent
anecdote
agenda.
on that.
Yes.
So back in the fall, the Broward County Commission was appointing a former school board candidate to a board, like a mental health advisory board or behavioral health. I can't remember what it was called. And he was actually the candidate that, he was hunting and calling both the other candidate and her volunteers' names at
What?
the early voting sites. Yeah, super childish, like immature
This is
behavior.
a school board candidate.
School board candidate.
Okay.
So then one of the county commissioners was going to appoint this guy to a board for mental health.
Oh, that sounds like a
So-
good idea.
A whole bunch of the volunteers for the winning candidate that got mocked and taunted. I mean, we're talking about like racial slurs. Like, they always talk about being the party of tolerance and, whatever. No.
Until you disagree with them. And if
So
they don't tolerate
They
you.
showed up at the county commission meeting and all commented on that consent agenda item to appoint him
That's
to
where
the
they
board.
put board for like counties. That's where they
Yeah.
put a lot of the board appointments are in consent.
They spoke up against that appointment, and they relayed to the commission exactly how nasty this guy behaved at the polling places, and that county commissioner had to kind of eat crow and
Did they pull it
They
out?
pulled it. They
Yeah.
pulled it. Yep.
Oh,
So
see,
showing
it
up
works. It
works.
Listen, they are scared. Not scared, but when people show up, they know that there's a bunch of people at home watching them.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
showing up works. And if we don't show up, if we don't go and we don't speak, or at a minimum, if you're too nervous to speak, you can put a card in and write your comment on there. You can send emails. Like, we have to do something. If they don't see that, then they govern in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And then we don't get to. Then I always say this, and now I always said it about voting, that if you don't vote, you don't get a voice. Well, if you don't speak up now, you don't get a voice, because you can't complain about something that you're not actively trying to change.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And they make it as hard as possible because the county commission meetings in both counties are during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Your school board meets in the evenings, at least one time a month. Broward, I think, is almost always in the daytime.
Palm Beach County is mostly in the evening. Their workshops are during the day, but
Yeah.
they're evening meetings.
So they make it difficult for people that are working for a living to get to these meetings. But like Josie said, you can submit comments. I've submitted a ton of comments to the school board meetings, like during all of the brouhaha last year and this spring. So it does make a difference. They do read the comments. When our future guest Tori Alston was the chair of the school board back before the election, he actually would read all of the comments that came in during the
Oh.
meeting, which they do not do now and they didn't do before him. But he felt it important to,
I like that.
I like that. Make sure
you know,
all of the comments
and
are read.
I mean, in some of them meetings there was a whole bunch of comments,
Stacks of cards.
and he gave each speaker, like 3 minutes or whatever. I mean, like some of the meetings they cut the speakers down to like a minute.
Oh yeah, I've been in meetings.
Yeah.
My first ever time speaking before public officials was a legislative. I don't remember the exact term, when they have like the pre-meetings before legislative session. So, which is going to be coming up soon, which I want to get the dates and we'll post those too. So on our socials. So if there's bills, as the legislative session is moving, we're moving towards legislative session, which is in January. Starts in January this year. So it'll start earlier this year rather than when they have the session starting in March. They have public meetings where they'll have a handful of legislators, and you can come and you can speak about
This
any
is at the city or county level?
state level.
Oh, but they have them in.
They have them in the regions.
Yeah.
So I went to somewhere up in Palm Beach, somewhere in North Palm Beach County, and they have them all there, and you get to speak about. You and submit your card, your comment, or whatever, and you get like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever it may be, and you get to speak about whatever agenda item. Not agenda. I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong terms. Bill. Whatever bill, any bill that's already been proposed, or what you want to see proposed. I would like to see a bill that, says we can't walk across the street on Tuesdays, whatever. So that is where this is an opportunity for us to get out there, especially when we get into the live local and we talk about what that means. And really, like, they say that this is the opportunity for these legislators to connect with the people. So we need to make sure that they are connecting with us and connecting with the right people, so to speak.
Well, I think it also, like, we want to say like, oh, our legislature and, our people in government, they work for us. And that's very true. But we need to direct them.
Yes.
We need to tell them what we need from them in order for them to fulfill that obligation. And I think that's one thing that we really haven't done as a society in a while.
No, we just think that we think because you know why we have too much trust that they are up there doing things in the best interest of the people.
And we think that they think like we do.
Right.
When that might not be the case.
So this is my first time, right? So I sign up, I create my speech. I spent days writing my speech, and we're supposed to get 3 minutes. And so we get up there, and before we even get started, Mike Caruso makes a motion to cut our time. and cut our time by a minute, and I was like, oh, okay then. Yeah, that was my first experience, like in speaking to like public officials.
Yeah.
This was few years ago, before COVID, and I was like, okay, so they can do that. Okay then. It was interesting. So I don't even know how I got on that. Oh, we were talking about trim notices.
Yeah.
And making your voice heard at county commissions.
Yeah. So like for Broward County, the meeting's September 7th at 5 o'clock. So they are doing it in the evening for this one. School board's 5:30 on the 12th. Ours is September 13th. They actually moved the city commission meeting from Tuesday night to Wednesday night because it can't. The city meetings can't conflict with the county or the school board. They have to have them on different nights.
That makes sense.
So,
That's good. It's one of the two,
which
right?
is surprising. Yeah. If you want to give it to the Hillsborough Inlet District for raising your tax rate, then you can show up.
What's theirs?
0.099 mils to 0.111 mils.
All right.
So, like, for instance, my bill, which obviously is based on my property value, it's going up $2.91 for the
Go
year.
yell at them.
I'll tell you what, like, just to kind of piggyback on, like, the trim notices, like, for me, I'm fortunate. I bought at a very good time. I'm locked in with the Saver Homes at a very reduced rate. I couldn't afford to live in Lighthouse Point today if I bought today. And, I feel bad for the people, and I feel bad if they weren't adequately informed by their realtor, especially people moving in from out of state, exactly how the property tax works. Like a good rule of thumb is 2% of the purchase price is what your bill's going to be. And make sure you lock in that homestead the very first year.
Yeah. So, because we made that mistake.
Oh.
Yeah.
But
we have it now.
Mine's
It's just not going to kick in for another year.
My overall tax bill went up by almost $500 year over year. Over half of that, $285, is increases in non-ad valorem. Fire, stormwater, and garbage or waste, solid waste.
Yeah, you guys need to come to Palm Beach County and take a page out of our solid waste process.
I've heard it's the bee's knees.
It's the bee's knees. It's amazing.
It's stunning. It's absolutely
I've never been so excited about garbage in my entire life.
I have a really random, useless fact about landfills. I was one of the few people in the country that knew how to depreciate the airspace above landfills.
What does that mean?
So you think about it, like with a landfill, they build up.
Yeah.
So that space above the landfill is depreciable property that they can expense over time because they're going to fill it with garbage.
Okay.
And so you figure out what that amount of space is, and then you depreciate. It was this crazy formula. Republic Services, which was kind of a...
You're such a nerd, Abby.
This was my first year in public accounting. I worked on Republic Service. It was an 1,800-page consolidated tax return.
Oh, my gosh.
This was before e-file was a thing. It was like right before e-file came into vogue. But I was one of the few people in the country that learned how to depreciate the airspace above landfills.
Can you put that on your resume?
I don't know. I rolled off that engagement after 1 year, so
It doesn't matter. You know how to do it.
Do you know how high above sea level the landfills can go?
no.
Do you?
164 feet, I believe.
Ooh, that's tall.
It's like
Yeah.
13
That's why we
stories.
call them Mount Trashmores.
I mean,
Right.
Coconut Creek, Monarch Hill. They give it such a pretty name.
It's so pretty.
It's got to be
Mount
getting close to
Trashmore.
that
Mount Trashmore.
because it is. I mean, I've been looking at that landfill like my whole life.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. It's we always go, but we would always like, Mom, there's mountains here. She's like, no, that's not a mountain, guys.
Well, they turned the landfill down in like West Davie into a park, Vista View Park.
Ew.
It's built on top of a landfill.
I know there's golf courses built on top
Yeah,
of landfills.
park. It was a Park View or something like that in Lantana. Used to be a landfill.
Yes.
Yep.
But it's so interesting. Like, you usually think of landfills like, like your garbage just gets dumped in a landfill. And
Just like rotting diapers and like.
Yeah. And it's like, I
always thought that.
I always thought that too. I had no idea. Like,
It used to be that way.
of course, yes, it used to be that way. But it's like they actually burn it and turn it into ash. and so then that's
They
ash.
shut our incinerator down in Broward.
You don't incinerate your garbage?
Not
What do you do
anymore.
with it?
That's why Monarch Hill's such a boondoggle because there was an incinerator there and they shut it down.
See, again, they need to. Okay, so just for the record, for those who don't know, Palm Beach County has a solid waste authority. It operates all of the garbage in Palm Beach County. Everything. Cities, everybody. And we burn it. And it looks like the fires of hell. It does.
It feels like it too.
It does feel like it.
It does. It is like the coolest thing
It's the
ever.
coolest
It's
thing.
so cool. It's like this giant claw comes
Oh,
down.
yeah.
Oh, the claws. The
Yes.
claws.
Yeah. It's like it's
The
like
claw.
it's like those those toys that
I was explaining this to my
Yeah.
kids, and they're like, I could just see their little minds going.
And each claw fits the equivalent of trash for a family of 4 for 2.5 years.
Holy moly!
Each
They
claw.
said that if it's on the ground, you can walk under the claw thing.
It's 13 feet high.
Yeah.
It's 13 feet high.
So the claw picks up the garbage and it moves it into the incinerator and it pushes.
You
down
guys
to
did the tour?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Waste Management has been at the last 2 Lighthouse Point Commission meetings, and I really want to take the tour of
So
their
Waste
facilities.
Management is the Broward.
They have
or-
the contract.
That's what. Oh, okay.
They have the contract with the county.
Okay.
Yeah, and the county is in the process of forming like a interlocal authority
Mm-hmm.
amongst all the cities, like a governing board for. It's for solid waste, but I don't know if they're going to be the ones like kind of like keeping Waste Management, the liaison, keeping them in check, whatever you want to call it. It's interesting because it was brought up at the Lighthouse Point meeting the other night. 28 of the 31 counties have signed on
Mm-hmm.
to the board and appointed someone to be their, one commissioner or council member to be their liaison or whatever.
Representative.
Hallandale Beach said no.
What are they gonna do with
Pompano
their
Beach,
trash?
I have no idea. They're a bunch of condos. Pompano
But they
Beach,
still have trash.
Pompano Beach voted not to vote, and then Pembroke Pines, a whole bunch of residents showed up at the meeting last night, and they actually voted no as well. So, but they were talking about putting the incinerator in Pembroke Pines, and so they were pissed about getting it.
So if they come to Palm Beach County, they can see that our incinerator is up against like a country club.
Really,
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And they all
Yeah,
have
how
a
does-
great relationship.
really,
Yes.
It
And
is-
it's surrounded by wetlands and like preserve.
and for
Where is
trash,
it?
it's the cleanest thing. It's like it's so clean.
It's so clean.
It's so
The
clean.
environmentalists, like the climate change activists,
No,
don't
they
get
hate
pissed? Okay, I was gonna
No,
say.
they hate it. But so the guy at the Dan at the Solid Waste Authority, he said, Dan Pellets, he said that the reason that they get so upset about it is because in their minds when they hear burning trash, they think of like in the 50s when people would throw stuff in a big barrel and just light it on fire. But that's not what we're doing. And the
Right.
emissions of this are like there's no emissions.
Yeah.
Right.
Side note,
It
my-
actually creates energy.
It does create energy. Oh, okay. Sorry. Side note, and then I'm going to say what it does to
Yeah,
create
just
the
talking,
energy.
Talking about the burning the trash. Side note, my late uncle, when he managed our store outside of Tallahassee, he always bragged about having the cheapest garbage bill in the company because he literally would put it in a barrel.
Whoosh. I feel like that'd be mildly therapeutic.
Right.
Okay, so this is what they do to create energy. So the trash goes through the incinerator, and they take the ash. The ash goes to the landfill. In the landfill, it starts to make methane.
Oh, yes.
Methane.
Yes.
So then they take the methane gas and they pipe it into the solid waste sludge department. So the liquid sludge. So
Which is
sewage.
People sludge.
People
sludge.
sludge. The people sludge. They use the methane to process and burn off all of the impurities in the people sludge, and then that gets turned into fertilizer pellets.
It's like the coolest thing.
We like have no waste in Palm Beach County.
So Palm Beach County is the number 1 facility for recycling in the state. The number 1.
But recycling is different from
is different.
incinerating.
Yes.
but
so,
incinerating is top in North America.
right. So it's like just as my point is going to be is imagine what we just do with our trash. Imagine what we do with our recycling. So
Yeah.
it's really amazing. And just for the record, if you do not follow Commissioner Marcy Woodward's Facebook page, please do so, and her Instagram page, because we do Trash Talk Tuesdays. We are educating people on trash. And so this series just started, so be sure to check it out. Trash Talk Tuesdays. And we're working through all of this to educate people on their trash, from the
I
curb.
learned so much.
And
To-
recycling, right?
yes.
Like what you can recycle, what you shouldn't
and
recycle.
that we do recycle. The nasty rumor is that, oh, well, they just sell it off.
And it's
Or
not-
they just
Trash
throw it
Talk
in the
Tuesdays
trash.
is not to talk bad
That's
about
definitely a
other
myth,
people.
and that came up in the last 2 meetings with Waste Management. Like
Really?
the myth about them, like anything that they can't
So
sell,
they
they throw into the landfill,
They
which is not
said
true.
that it happens in other parts of the country, but it
Yes.
does not happen here.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I learned that. It was
Anyway.
fascinating. So
And they say they have a market for every product.
They do.
And they don't throw anything into the
Mm-mm.
landfill.
No,
But
just ash.
But we
Just
have to do a better job as residents and citizens of separating. Like some people use a recycling bin as a garbage bin, and then that just creates extra work at the recycling station
correct.
because they have
Correct.
to sort it. They have to, it could be.
Correct.
They say it's contaminants, but it's really like food. Like
Right.
when
You're right. So like if you put a pizza box in, there's grease in it. It has to go in the
But
trash.
did you know the reason that pizza boxes are? They've got the
paper thing in there?
no, like the sides are all like perforated.
Mm-hmm.
It's so that you can tear off the sides that aren't contaminated with the grease, so you can still recycle those.
Mind blown, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. End the podcast.
No, like literally,
That's crazy.
there are cities in Broward, Deerfield Beach being one of them, that have discontinued the recycling program altogether because the cost is too high.
Right.
They and Lighthouse Point's like seriously looking at that. They don't want to discontinue it because we do a good job.
We
I
should
think.
do an interlocal agreement with Palm Beach County.
I know, right? Can we just secede from Broward and
I
join
mean,
Palm
we'll
Beach
take
County?
you. We'll take you. You guys have a high tax base. We'll take you.
Yeah.
We do. We do. But yeah, no, like the last 2 meetings, like having Waste Management there, you can tell the woman that's like the governmental.
Liaison.
I keep saying liaison. I can't think of another word.
representative.
Representative. She's the go-between.
Okay.
So liaison is the right word.
Yeah, it is.
She's just like a wealth of information, and you can tell she's like, she seems to be very passionate about like reaching out and engaging the cities and the municipalities about this issue. Very proud of what they do at Waste Management. So I don't know. I mean,
Listen, one of the things I've learned that is fascinating about working for the county is all of the different areas of life that happen without us even really realizing it, and that there are people who this is their livelihood, their job, like water. I was explaining to my son because he was like looking at a canal. He's like, "Oh, Mom, look at the pretty lake," and I was like, "Well, that's a canal." So I explained what a canal was and how it's water moves and all these things, and like I never knew any of that. I mean, we always just had canals. I didn't ever think about what the canal. It was there to give water, to water the grass, and be a creepy place to like go walk around at.
One of these podcasts will talk about the Green K project.
Yeah,
About how Palm Beach County is creating like literally spring water. They're able to create spring water. And it's a fascinating project, and I don't even know enough about it to be able to discuss it. But
I know we got funding for it.
we did, and it's really, really amazing. And so it's like we take the environment and things very seriously. We want to have clean water. We
Which
want to
is
have
contrary to
clean
what people
air.
think about Republicans.
Exactly. We want to be good stewards of the earth.
Yes.
By all means.
To much is given, to whom much is given, much is expected.
Exactly.
I just had this lesson today with my kids because they want a pet. And I said, well, when we have responsibility fulfilled in all of these areas, then we can have that conversation.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
it's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about trash, which is freaking amazing. But, water is another aspect that is really being worked on in Palm Beach County that I'm been very impressed with so far. So, that's awesome.
So I want to talk about Live Local, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had the privilege and honor to sit through a city council meeting in Boca on Tuesday night. That was 4.5 hours long.
Can you hold one
yes.
second? Because Abby talked about the public hearing notices for Broward. I just want to mention that in Palm Beach County for the budget, the first one is September 7th at 5:05, and the second one is September 26th at 5:05. So
budget for Palm Beach County where they will approve or deny or make changes to the budget.
yes, so September 7th and September 26th. Make sure it's on your
And I know the
calendars.
municipalities are also all doing theirs too. So maybe I'll dig in and I'll see if I can get the Boca Del Rey Boynton dates out. And maybe you can do Lighthouse Point and stuff, and we'll put those in our information. So okay. So we talked a little bit. I don't know if you tuned into our episode with John Brody, we touched a little bit on what's called the Live Local Act, which is a bill that was passed by Tallahassee and signed by the governor that basically is the attempt or the goal of the bill is to create better workforce housing. As Jessica said earlier, we still have 1,000 people a day moving to Florida, and there's not a lot of places for them to live. Well, I shouldn't say that. A lot of the people who are moving here have no problem finding places to live. It's the people who already live here who are having a hard time finding places to live because of the driving of the market from our out-of-state newcomers. So the Live Local Act, basically, in a nutshell, is to force municipalities and counties to allow developers to build workforce housing in areas that are not zoned for residential. So commercial, so if you don't know, the way that a lot of cities and counties are designed is they have different zones. So there's residential and commercial and mixed use, and then there's all kinds of nuances in there, certain ones that have heights, certain ones that don't have heights, certain ones that allow, I mean, we could probably, I need a master class on this.
Yeah, the city of Lighthouse Point voted on a new zoning designation last year because the old yacht club was being rezoned to include the yacht club plus townhouses. So it was like yacht club mixed use zone as opposed to residential or commercial. Or
Interesting.
Yeah, so we have like a special zone in Lighthouse Point that's yacht club / mixed use.
Yacht club.
It was
Only
like
in Lighthouse Point do you have yacht club as a zone.
It was like 4 years in the making. I kid you not.
That was an issue during your campaign.
It's still an issue. Tuesday night, they had the second reading of 2 ordinances to amend the development plan and the site plan to
Still?
allow. Yeah,
Oh my gosh, it sounds like Boca.
they haven't torn the old clubhouse down
They
yet.
can't get anything done. These
No.
people can't get anything done.
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
So,
so
anyways,
no, that's fine. So feel free if I'm getting something wrong, jump in because I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. So it's basically it's an interesting law because I think that the heart behind it is good. I think that they want to have better processes or not have better processes. They're trying to accommodate the demand here in the state. But at the same time, it does infringe on home rule a little bit for the state to come in and tell cities and counties that you have to allow these buildings to be built here, regardless of how high they want to go. I mean, there are still parameters they have to be.
Ordinances.
Your current ordinances, exactly. So it's caused a lot of drama and consternation and stress inside of the municipalities and the counties. So in Boca, they last month in July, they brought forward an ordinance to implement, let me see if I get this correctly, to implement the Live Local Act as an ordinance in Boca with our own like amendments to it. So it wouldn't do anything that goes against the act, but it would add some more parameters or less parameters. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to do, and I'm pretty sure that the city council is still not sure what they're trying to do.
They don't know what they're trying to do.
They don't know what they're trying to do. So in that meeting, that in July, it was about an hour and a half on this specifically, whereas at the beginning of the meeting, one of the council members made the comment and she said, this seems a little premature to have this conversation. I think we should wait and workshop it some more, and then we can bring it back at another meeting. Well, they all ignored what she suggested, and then an hour and a half later, they all voted to move it to the workshop a month later. So fast forward to this last meeting. They had a workshop meeting about it on Monday, which I didn't get a chance to watch all of it. It was a 3-hour meeting.
holy moly.
And then they come to the city council meeting, and they come to this conversation, and again, confusion, straight up confusion. The same council member who brought up the issue before brought up an issue, and she was like, I thought we were going to be discussing a different percentage, which is basically they kind of separated it out. So from my understanding, Boca, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, Brian's probably going to come in next time and be like, no, Josie, here's where you were wrong. So
Love Brian. Love Brian.
But and I'm fine with that. Just correct me if I'm wrong. But from my understanding, Boca doesn't really have doesn't really allow workforce housing in the city. They're looking to try to do a 10%, allow 10% for workforce housing. So when a developer is going to develop,
As opposed to
40%.
40%, yeah.
So the Live Local Act requires 40%. So what that means is if a developer is going to develop, let's just say 20 units, then 40% of those, according to Live Local, have to be workforce housing.
Yeah.
So
And the 10% was the percentage before the Live Local Act was passed, according to some of the stuff I read.
okay, but
Which
I
I
think
know
cities couldn't decide if they wanted to do that or not.
Correct. Yeah. But I guess the state law
Oh,
previously
okay.
was
Is that what it
10%,
is?
And there was some
Oh, okay. Where that came from. I've been trying to figure that out. Okay.
yeah, it was 10% before, and then like I don't know what sale.
Because the developers don't want to do 40%. So if a developer, it's not financially viable for them, and it's especially in the high-end real estate market in Boca, to build a building where 40% of it is workforce housing.
But where in Boca is it zoned commercial or mixed use? Because those are the
There's
zones.
lots of commercial.
Like along Dixie?
No, all over. Boca
over?
has the highest commercial real estate
really?
square footage in the county.
Wow.
Yeah.
So SAIL is State Apartment Incentive Loan Program that provides low interest loans on a comprehensive basis to affordable housing developers each year. This money often serves to bridge the gap between the development's primary financing and the total cost of the development.
So I sat through a seminar where they talked about SAIL a lot, but they never once defined it. And I was like, the definition.
Handy dandy little cheat
helpful.
sheet you got there.
I know.
So
Thank you, Michael
Marcy.
Woodward.
Yes, Marcy's supposed to send me one like that.
Oh.
So okay, that'll be really good. That'll be really helpful.
And then SHIP, if you ever, SHIP is also
Ship and sale.
part of this is State Housing Initiative Partnership Program. So if you hear SHIP, it means provides funds to local governments as an incentive to create partnerships that produce and preserve affordable home ownerships with multi-family housing. The program was designed to serve very low and moderate income families.
So it's more so like to own like an apartment versus rent, which is more so what the sale is. Okay.
Correct.
So back to Boca. So they decided the reason I'm bringing all this up is both to discuss the Live Local Act, but also to discuss the incompetence in local government and how bad it really is. I've never sat through a meeting where I was so lost, and so were they.
How many attorneys are on that council?
1,
2.
2.
Oh, correct answer still.
Okay,
and
so
the city
this
attorney.
is a trick question.
That's a trick question. Exactly.
Are you talking about like city council members who are also attorneys, or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Or city attorneys who think they're city council members. Because we have that too. I was like, who's she? Why is this person talking? She was not. So
I mean, our city attorney talks during the commission meetings too.
if they're asked questions.
He interjects.
Does he direct staff?
No.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
No.
She doesn't direct staff. She directs the council members to direct staff.
Right.
It's bad. It's so bad. Okay. We won't. I won't. But the point is, wow, getting on. So they. So this council. She says, and this is at the beginning of the meeting. This is one of the first ordinances that we're talking about, and she's like, we don't have enough information to talk about this Live Local. There is still. She's like, I've spoken to people in Tallahassee. They are going to be coming back next year to be re-looking at this. I don't think Boca
in legislative session.
I don't think Boca should be passing anything as it relates to this. All of the information is there right now. If someone brings a project to us right now, we know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Because that's what they keep saying is staff doesn't know what to do with the projects. She's like, it's in the it's all there. Like, I don't understand. I mean, I'm paraphrasing what she's saying, obviously. But so they decided not to listen to her. They proceeded to spend, another hour and 15 minutes talking about this, which, again, no resolution, none. They proceed with the rest of the meeting. They get to the end of the meeting where they had added additions to the agenda, and that's when they decided to discuss the 10% portion, because that is what the developers want, is the 10%. So we're at the end of the meeting, or at the end of the evening, it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And she goes, excuse me, I just want to say for the record that if we would have discussed this when I wanted to, we'd all be a lot more fresh and we'd probably get a lot more done. But nobody wanted, she was right. She was right.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. So then they proceeded to spend another 45 minutes discussing it. And they literally spent 15 minutes during that discussion talking about what they wanted to accomplish in the discussion. I was like, wait. I kept looking at the clock and I kept going, wait, they have so nobody knows what they want to talk about? And then you got one who's like, I'm tired, I want to go home. Can we table this? And they're like, well, I can power through. And then, I mean, Did
you say one of them brought snacks?
Well, that was earlier on because I guess she complained at the meeting before, during the day before the workshop meeting, that she was hungry because they were there for 3 or 4 hours. And so she's like, tonight I have snacks. She had like 3 bottles of drinks. She's like, I got my drinks. I got my snacks. I'm ready to go. She was like ready.
Yeah. But in the world.
Started at 6.
6 o'clock.
My gosh.
So we got there at 6 o'clock. By 6:30, they had passed the consent agenda, and then nothing else happened till. And then 10:55 they adjourned.
The only thing that they actually did was they added 4 new staffers. Which, by the way, I had a conversation with the commissioner about this because I gave her like a verbal report on all of this stuff. And this was really interesting. And I kind of wish that I had brought it up in public comment. So they wanted to add 4 new staffers to be staff for the council members.
Like one each?
Well, that's the question. They can't have one each because there's 5 of them.
And there's only 4 staff.
And there's only 4 staff. So I think that they're really just adding more staff for the administration, but they're putting it under the guise of assistants or staff and they can. I don't know if they're going to share them, but they can't because of sunshine.
Yeah.
So I really wish I would have asked this because I didn't. I was just like, wait, what?
Yeah, how are they going to do that?
They can't. They can't have a personal staffer. And I know that's one of the whole reasons they wanted it because I know that Drucker was wanting a staffer for herself because she's like on all these boards and da-da-da-da-da. And so one of them, Knockless, didn't. She's like, I don't need a staffer. I've got everything. But honestly, after this meeting, they need staff. They need someone helping them understand what the heck is going on.
They need somebody to help organize them, to get them
the correct information and the questions to ask.
Correct.
Because they don't know. I'm telling you that I learned more from the developers who were giving comment about the Live Local Act than I learned from any
because it's impacting them financially and they need to know their stuff.
Right. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, they
want to bring good quality products.
Right.
You know, and they don't want, you know, I think they mentioned several times that they had like 4 or 5 projects that they wanted to bring to the table. And because of all of this round and round and round you go,
nobody swear we stopped. Nobody knows.
that they had they can't bring these projects forward, and so it's like you have a housing shortage in the city of Boca. You have developers that are like, we have these projects, and like literally there's no connection between the two.
No, meanwhile they just want to tear down stuff to build like high-end apartment buildings in places where we don't need them.
And they were there.
The developers were there. They were all still there when I left. I had to leave at 10:30. I was like, guys, I gotta go. I can't stay awake anymore. I listened to the rest of the meeting at home while I was eating because I didn't. It was.
I'm like, I have to eat dinner before I go because I never know how long it's gonna last.
I will now because now this time I brought snacks and water because the last one that I was at that was 4 hours. I didn't bring any snacks or water and I was hitting the vending machine. So this one I brought snacks, water, but I forgot a phone charger, so my phone did die. Yeah. And because I'm always texting during what's happening? Somebody explain this to me.
I think by the end of the meeting the other night, I was the last like non-staff,
the last
interested party. Yeah, in the meeting, and I am through and through a back row Baptist. I sit in the back row of the room. I just camp out back there, and I'm like on my phone a little bit. Like every now and then, like I'll text. Like I have a good rapport with like the mayor and a couple of the commissioners, and sometimes I'll like text them in the middle of the meeting, like, "Oh, we're still talking about the yacht club."
Exactly. No, I'm the last. Not this one the other night, but the one a month ago. I was the last person in there. They finished the meeting, and I think Ms. Drucker was like, "Good night, Josie. Bye." Because I was also in the back, just hanging out, waiting, and that's why that one went till 10. So this one I was like, I gotta go at 10:30. I had to cut it off. So
I know. So we went to music trivia bingo at 2 Georges. We left the meeting at what it was like.
You guys
20
left
to
at
8. So we left at 20 to 8, and then we go do music trivia bingo at 2 Georges, and then I'm like,
for an hour.
I'm like, it's still going on. I'm like, should I come back? Josie's like, no.
Don't come back. Don't. Save yourself. Save yourself.
So then I turn the meeting on, and Stu's like, this is torture. This is absolute torture.
It's because they don't. And I said to one of the developer ladies who was there sitting next to me, I was like, man, I hope none of these people, and I feel bad for saying this because if you're ever watching, guys, I think you can do better. But like, I hope they never run for county commission because they will never survive. Like, county commission is boom, boom, boom. I mean, we had a 135-page agenda. Half of it was consent, so we didn't have to go through every item, but still, half of it's consent. You still have got, like, what is that, 60-something pages of agenda that we got through in 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
This was a 5-page agenda. 4.5 hours, almost 5 hours.
Yeah.
Because they talk in circles, and I don't understand.
Some of them, I mean, like, if your commission's anything like mine, like, you always have at least one commissioner, council member that just loves to hear the sound of their own
They
voice.
all love, well, I shouldn't say they all do. No, we have them one. We have one specifically who sits there, who likes to pontificate, but then he doesn't take control of the meeting.
Yeah.
It's just I feel like I likened it to it almost feels like that they talk to each other like they're on a first date. They all right? Think about how they spoke to each other. Well, and so they talk and they will disagree. Like you might be talking to someone who you don't know that well and you'll have a little disagreement. No, I really like, butter on my pasta. No, I really like oil on my pasta or whatever. You're at dinner. And but you disagree, but it's very polite.
Yeah.
And then you talk in circles because you don't want to offend
And
the
God
other person.
forbid you put Parmesan cheese on anything.
God forbid. That's they talk to each other like they're all on a first date.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh my God, this is the longest first date ever. And the most boring. No, you are not a match made in heaven. So, okay. So I want to go the Live Local. So at the last REC meeting, there was a representative there. And he gave a rah-rah sis kumbah conversation about how great the legislative session was. And I don't disagree that there were some good things that were done, right? We like the voting bills. I'm happy with the school choice bills.
We got lots of
Appropriations.
appropriations.
We got a lot of appropriations
for Palm Beach
Palm Beach County
And Lighthouse Point.
and Lighthouse Point. So we got I'm not gonna trash the whole thing, but there are some serious issues that we have in this state that were not addressed, and that was namely everyone's gonna say insurance obviously is a big one, and then this Live Local Act where it's got so many weird things we talked about with John Brody, how there's the tax credits and how essentially they don't have to pay taxes. The developers don't have to pay certain types of taxes, and then the residents don't have to pay certain types of taxes because they get tax exemptions or credits or whatever it may be. So how is that going to impact the taxpayers around them who are paying for services like fire, like police, all of the things? It's essentially socialized housing, right? We talked about that. So I brought that up in the question to him. And so he opened it up for questions. And so I asked him point blank, what were you guys thinking in Tallahassee? Because this bill is, has socialistic style to it. And he did not like that I said that.
His face was like, oh.
Yeah. And he backed up.
Yeah.
And then he sat there and tried to tell me that, it's tax credits from the state.
Only a portion of it is.
But that doesn't matter. It's still our money.
Yes.
And so that's a big thing that politicians really like to tell you is, it's tax credits coming from the state. It's not coming from your county or your federal.
And that was honestly, the tax credits, that's the piece of the legislation that caught my eye because, if you think about it, there's no individual income tax in the state. And pass-throughs, S-corps and LLCs, unless they flow to another corporation, they don't pay income tax either.
Right.
So how is this credit going to, unless you're a classic C corporation, who's going to benefit from that tax credit? And maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe a lot of these developers are C corps, but
Rob,
I see they're more LLCs.
Yeah, but the bigger ones are probably more your.
Lennar is a big C corp. Just from my public accounting experience, they were a client of Deloitte's when I worked there. But a lot of the
smaller developers
or private equity where it's all LLCs and LPs and LLPs, whatever. I just don't know.
No, that's a really good point, Abby. I don't think.
I don't know how much this tax credit is going to get taken advantage of. It just depends on the entity structure of the developer.
No, and I don't just. We don't know how it's all going to go down. The fact that though it's even there, and the fact that they put it into it.
No, they like to dangle the tax
right, and
credits.
then they tell us, oh well, don't worry about that. That's state funding.
Yeah. Which the state does have a pretty large surplus.
Yes, but then that should come back to the people who are paying 40% more in insurance.
Yeah, but how do you
I don't know. I'm just saying
logistically, how do you do that? I agree with you 100% in theory, but how does it? We have all these sales tax holidays in place.
Yeah.
So we're saving, money that way. The state's returning some of our money to us through the sales tax holidays.
That's if you can afford to buy anything.
Yeah, that's true.
You're taking advantage of that.
I am hopeful. I've heard reports over the last week or two that there's a small trickle of insurers coming back to the state.
I heard there's more leaving.
No, I've heard there's more. There's a few big ones coming back to the state.
Like who?
I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but that's a good sign.
Okay, that is a good sign.
Because I think they all kind of have a herd mentality where if like
Right.
one leaves, then they all start thinking about leaving because they get skittish. But if one starts coming back, I mean, like fingers crossed, we have a calm, a relatively calm hurricane season.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get through hurricane season, then there's not another Ian, whatever. I think it'll be better. But yeah, I mean, I paid my homeowner's insurance yesterday. It was. I mean. And then I got my auto renewal for next month today in my email, and my 6-month premium went up almost $400. I am one person with a clean record, and like
Your homeowners?
no, my
Lighthouse-
auto.
Oh, your auto. Sorry, I
my
missed that.
auto.
in Lighthouse
four-
Point.
I'm trying to remember. I think my premium actually increased when I moved from Fort Lauderdale to Lighthouse Point.
Really?
Yeah, when I
That's
changed my
interesting.
address 11 years ago. But
When we moved from West Boca to East Boca, our premium actually dropped $60.
Really?
nice.
I wonder if ours did.
But I mean, like, I really hope because there is a lag. There is a lag
I
with
know,
this
and that's what they keep
legislation.
saying.
But I really hope that we
I
start
hope
to
so.
see some of the
Because if it goes up anymore, I mean, we're gonna be.
Yeah.
It's gonna be beans and rice for everyone.
Gotta
Not
get
that
Dave
everything
Ramsey
gets
on
beans
that.
and rice. Love me some beans and rice. I'm
Every
just
once
saying.
in a while, it's nice to have a steak. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh, don't hungry. No, I'm kidding. I did eat dinner tonight before I came, so I'm learning how to do that better. So, all right. So that's the Live Local Act. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please drop them in
But
the
we're not
chat.
going to dive. I mean, I think we've all kind of committed to diving into Live Local a little bit more and finding out exactly what's going on, because I think this is really important.
It's a very ongoing conversation.
Yeah, and I really think residents of their cities and stuff need to get involved, because it's really important, because yes, we need housing, but how is it constructed? Where is it constructed? All of those kind of things. And we as residents want to weigh in on that, and not, other people, and not necessarily the developers picking and choosing either. So it's a fine line, and we kind of all need to kind of work together and solve this problem. But you don't want a 10-story high-rise in the middle of single-family homes.
No.
You just don't.
And for the record, the Live Local Act shouldn't be doing that. It is
Correct.
only supposed to go into where is non-residential zoning.
Yeah.
That's
so they
correct.
know they're not going to be putting like in your single, which I mean, the city of Boca loves to do that. They built a 3-story apartment building looking right over people's backyards.
Oh gosh.
And there's a lot of cities that could really benefit from this, because like you have Boynton Beach, you have Delray Beach, they have a lot of like commercial structures that really aren't functioning for them. There's a lot of places in Broward too that have like those old kind of strip malls that just have like your we just need to pay attention, and the more we pay attention, the more that we know that like our communities are going to be protected, and that it makes sense. And most developers want to do the right thing, and they want to have a good quality product. So
They do.
we want to be able to do
I
that.
kind of
yeah.
also feel like they're in it for the money too.
Well,
but-
of course, of course.
Well, yes, but they
but
also
it's their reputation,
yes, Yes.
and they like to be able to drive by buildings and say and
Oh,
people
yeah.
to be happy
Yeah.
that they see the building. And so like I sat through the zoning meeting today in Palm Beach County talking about a couple of projects, and it was really interesting. And every municipality, just so you guys know too, has and county have zoning boards.
Oh yeah.
And the zoning board, a lot of times by the time a project gets to the city council or county city commission, it's hard to slow that train in certain areas. I know in Boca that's very hard. They a lot of times will listen to what the planning and zoning boards say. So if you know that there's a project that you want to support or don't want to support happening in your area, find out when the zoning boards are meeting, and those are also public boards.
Yeah.
Take public comment and start there. Because it's also very interesting to hear the developers' presentations and hear what they want to do and their vision for the community. And a lot of them reach out to the communities or surrounding the structures or the buildings the developments that they want to build, and they talk about it with the residents. And like this one that's happening in Boynton, just around the turnpike on Boynton Beach Boulevard, the residents in the area are so excited for, because they've been wanting something like this. It got so much support from the community. They're just very, very happy. And so it's really cool to see that relationship then develop between the developer and the residents in their community, because then the developers are bringing them products that they want to have. They want to have a brewery. They
And
want
this
to have these
happens,
things.
and that connection happens mainly because of HOAs.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, you know, we can poo-poo on HOAs and things of that nature, which, you know,
They're communist.
I agree. I agree to a point, but it's like they unite and they construct in a way that actually
They
makes
have
it
power.
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, they do.
Like as
huge.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Huge.
They when staff brought both of these projects, the 2 projects that were approved today forward, they brought up the letters that were received from the 2 big community associations of associations. So like
okay.
even the higher level ones,
Yeah.
like Cobra and then Boynton Beach.
Well, there's Cobra, there's Delray Alliance.
No, the other one, BRAC. The other one that was brought forward today. Anyway, Anyway, point is they brought the letters and they showed the letters saying that we've received letters of support from these organizations.
Yeah.
As a way to,
And these organizations, you know, like they come together, they discuss these projects, they vote on them. Like it's their own little
government.
You know, their own little.
It's a quasi-government
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, like, if you live in an HOA, get involved. Like, this is where, like, you can really put forth and know what's going on. It's just so it's just so important. You know, I kind of listened to the Boynton Beach meeting that kind of goes way off topic, but because it did not address any of these things that we're talking about now. But, you know, it's like there's these little projects and things that happen in counties or in cities, I should say, that, you know, affect everybody. And it's like some things just don't get paid attention to. And I you know, we talked about the Live Local Act with, you know, Boca Raton. Well, Boynton Beach has a statue, an art structure that is, I mean, the words that were being used were sexualization in nature, demonic, and I'm not kidding.
Oh, did they show it at our last REC meeting? Was that the guy who he brought it up and he said this is
yes.
That's what he was talking. Oh,
That's what he was
okay.
talking
So
about.
it was brought up. Okay.
So it was the first reading of an ordinance in the Boynton Beach. And so they had public comment and things of that nature. And so it's like, if you don't want a structure like that, like this is an opportunity to, you know, but that had to go through the art board, you know? So it's like
serve on boards.
Yeah.
Yes. And so and a whole nother topic is like all of these little boards that
They're
are
super important.
So the library, Boca needs a library, someone to serve on the library board.
Yes.
And the finance board.
And my favorite commissioner, whose birthday was yesterday, happy birthday, Commissioner Woodward. She put forth a veterans advisory or service advisory board. You know, she created that, which got passed with unanimous consent through the commission. So that was really awesome. And so now we're in a better place in Palm Beach County to serve our veterans.
Right.
But there's so many of these boards that I didn't even know or realize, and there are vacancies. So check, I know right on Palm Beach County's website, their main page, like you can look on the right-hand side and it says boards. It talks about the county boards. You can click that. You can do a filtered link to find out what boards have vacancies and what the requirements are. And it's a simple application. And sometimes you need to meet certain qualifications to sit on that board.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to be a resident. So if you're interested in getting involved, but this also happens on the city level too. You know, so pay attention. If you're interested in getting involved in politics, maybe you're thinking about running for office in the future, start with a board. Start with a board position. Because then you start to kind of learn how it works. You get to, you know, advise, you get to learn, and then you kind of see how it all kind of comes together and how the city councils and the commissions and the county commissions use these boards to be able to inform them to make better decisions.
Yeah, and I can give you, some examples from Lighthouse Point. You know, we have planning and zoning, we have code enforcement, we have community appearance, we have library, we have marine advisory board because we have so much water in our city. So a big topic that just passed within the last month was bunkering, dockside fueling, people being able. We were the only city in the state that didn't allow it, and it finally passed after decades. But that issue, the commission voted to approve the process, the discussion, they sent it to Marine Advisory Board. Marine Advisory Board then discussed it and like came up with some parameters for which companies to allow into the city, like what requirements those companies had to meet, like insurance requirements, certifications, like all of that. And then they sent the proposed ordinance back to the commission for approval. And I think it went back and forth like one time with some amendments or edits. But the same thing with the yacht club. So, like, obviously, planning and zoning was heavily involved in the yacht club rezoning and the development plan. Community appearance board was involved in the landscaping and the design, the curb appeal. So it's real interesting. And like you said, like when I ran for commission last year, I got asked a lot, like, "Well, have you served on boards in town?" No. So I got appointed to some boards this year, and I mean, it's great because you are learning the process. You're learning Robert's Rules of Order, the way a meeting's run, how you. I think it was my second true code enforcement board meeting. They made me run the meeting. They made me acting chair because both the chair and the vice chair were absent.
And you nailed it.
The first meeting, they made me make all the motions. In the second meeting, they made me run the meeting.
Trial by fire. Whew. Well, it's interesting because like I had a friend who called me because she wanted to know who to complain to about something with the Boca libraries because they have the summer reading. Her issue was they have the summer reading program. She said the prizes. She said she asked me if I participated in it, and I was like, we sign up for it, but I never like log our books. And she was like, well, I did for my kids this year, and the prizes are terrible. And I was like, yeah, that's why I don't log my books. And because, first of all, it's a pain in the butt to log them. You have to log.
Partner with Pizza Hut. Book it.
Right, book it. Exactly. So she said that she's like, listen, I don't like to brag that I'm from Chicago, but, because it's never anything to brag about. But when they lived in a suburb of Chicago, she's like, the kids would get ice cream vouchers.
Oh,
if
wow.
if they hit a certain amount of books, they got tickets to like water parks, local water parks in the community, like really good incentive things for them to read. So she's like, my kids, I mean, they read because they want to read, but like they're not going to read to get a pencil.
Right.
Like that's what they give them, a pencil, like a little sticky hand.
Poor kids.
Right. So she's like, I would think that in a city like Boca that there would be something like a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's a good question. So I called Brian Stenberg and I was like, Brian, who should she go to? Because I suggested she write City Hall and like say, can you get this to the correct people? And because I really didn't even think about there being a library board. He said, contact the library board. And so I did. And so, lo and behold, there's a spot open on the library board. So I was like, hey, you should consider getting on the library board because they're the ones who make these decisions. And so if you want to have a change, that's how we do it. And I didn't even think about a library, that there was a library board and that's the way to go. So if you're ever wondering what to do in a city, there's probably a board to address for that issue.
And like Jessica said, like some of these, I know in Lighthouse Point's Code of Ordinances, certain boards have certain, like they have to have a member that's an architect. They have to have a member that's a realtor. They have to have a member that's a attorney. And so if you are in a specialized field, that's a skill set that the city values. And, like if you want to get involved and, be civically, active like that, if you have a special skill set like that or special degree or training, like that's a way to utilize that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true.
For sure.
So
it makes it and it just makes things run so much smoother. And then if we have more conservative voices on these boards, that's how we steer the ship in different directions.
I think then you get to decide if they're going to put out Pride books in front of everyone at the library. If you're on the library board.
Exactly.
I think over the last year and a half, we've managed to get 5 of our precinct committee men and women appointed to boards in Lighthouse Point.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, we've
Does the school board have like some
yes,
committees and boards?
They have committees and task forces, and I actually was hanging with the Broward Young Republicans last night, watching the debate at Galuppi's.
Whoop whoop! Oh, no wonder you're so tired.
I know, can't keep up with them youngins.
At Galuppi's.
But a fellow precinct committee man was there from Cooper City. Actually, he came all the way up from Cooper City, but he told me that he was being appointed to one of the Broward County School Board. I think it was like a technology
Ooh.
board or task force.
So so if you
So,
would like
yeah.
to get involved in the school board and you don't want to run for school board,
Our
looking-
our one conservatives. Well, no, that's not true. I think the other two that have been appointed. You know, we've got one elected and two appointed conservatives on
have.
the school board. they're they're appointing people to these task forces and committees, so it's good.
it's very good.
Yeah, one of my precinct committeemen is on the facilities task force for our district schools because he was in construction and actually did work for the school board back in the day. So he knows the lay of the land there, which is good.
Yeah,
Bill
that's
Rector
very
just
good.
got appointed to a board in Palm Beach County.
Oh,
Yep.
that's great.
Yeah,
Yep.
for construction.
It's like
building something or
it's
other.
the construction. It's the appeals and I don't
Something
know
that
off
has to
the
do
top
with
of my
that he
head.
knows because that's
It's
his
got
wheelhouse.
it's got a long name. But yeah, there's a bunch of different boards. Most of them have openings, believe it or not.
Yeah.
you know?
There were a ton in Lighthouse Point.
It's hard to
Like,
find
There's some that don't even meet quorum and can't meet.
well, the code enforcement board was like that. Like you couldn't get 4
Wow.
of the members there. Now we have.
Nobody wants to be on the code enforcement board.
Actually, it was like back in the day. According to one of the commissioners who served on that board for a long time, that was like the highly coveted position in
Really?
town.
Well,
believe it
because
or
you get
not.
to be the like.
It's really more about neighbors helping neighbors because it's like we're not the ones that are putting the notice on your house.
Who does that?
The code enforcement officers.
Oh, so
We're
it's
the
just
ones that hear cases.
You're the appeals board.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. I remember you explaining this.
But
to me
there is
time.
one board in Lighthouse Point, the Personnel Appeals Board, that like hasn't met in like 10 years, but they only meet when there's a personnel issue in the city.
Mm.
So, but we do have one precinct committee woman on that. And
Yeah, so Bill Rector was appointed to the Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeals. That's what it was.
Say that 5 times fast. No
Yeah.
wonder we didn't remember what the name of the board was. Oy vey. All right. So what else?
we should probably start wrapping up.
Should we
pretty
start
soon.
wrap up?
Yeah,
All
we've been
right.
going at it for about an hour and a half now.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll say my last piece. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica because I know she wants to talk about our sponsor. Just don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.
Yeah. Abby, was there anything that you wanted to finish with?
I don't think so.
All right. So, yes, I want to thank our 30 agency, a private investigating firm. Stuart and I actually took their concealed certificate course. What's it called?
Concealed
So-
weapons certificate.
Yes. So it was awesome.
So it's not just investigating; it's also firearms training.
Yes.
Okay.
So Al, who is Al Kakachi, who owns R30 agency, does a couple different things, and we had the option and the ability to be able to take this course with him. And I'm not a big fan of guns. When my kids were young, I didn't want guns in the house, things of that nature, and that was just too powerful for me to consider at the time.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So
I don't. No, I'm just kidding. No, my dad. Sorry, real quick. My dad has our first gun show, so we go to our gun show on Mother's Day, my first Mother's Day, and so we're going to go to the gun show. And my dad, we're walking up to it, and he just has this like look on his face. I'm like, Dad, are you okay? He's like, listen, I didn't grow up how your mom grew up. My mom grew up in the South.
Yeah.
He's like, I grew up in Manhattan. He's like, I support the 2A all the way. He's like, but this is not a place that I am comfortable in.
Right?
And I was like, okay, Dad. He owns a shotgun, but
yeah.
anyway, sorry to mean to
Yeah,
interrupt.
so it's like it was
So I
just something
understand.
I did not feel comfortable with because I wasn't knowledgeable, and that
That's
was
how
the
I
thing.
feel too.
Yeah, you know, so
a lot of people are.
yeah, so he did a great job in making me feel comfortable and educating me, and I got to shoot at the range. I think I shot like 25
Which
shots
range
or
did you
whatever.
guys go to?
There's 50 bullets per box, so you shot at least 50 bullets.
Oh, at least 50.
Did you go to
Okay.
Delray?
No, Gun World and
Oh, in
That's where
Pompano.
we
That's
usually
right
go.
down the
Yeah.
street from my office.
yeah.
That's where we go a lot. Ladies'
Nice
night, yeah.
facility. It was great. I shot a Smith and Wesson 380 EZ. So I felt way more comfortable, way more educated, knowledgeable. So definitely, if it's something that you're interested in, check out his website, r30agency.com. Be sure if you want to send us an email, you can email us at wethelocalsfl@gmail.com. Check out our website, wethelocalspodcast.com. Make sure you like and subscribe on Rumble and YouTube. And I think that's all that we have tonight.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, do we have any super chats? Or
We
Rumble
did not
rants?
have any super chats.
Oh, do we have
come
any
in.
chats?
No chats tonight.
Oh, come on,
Oh,
guys!
Very quiet audience tonight.
Quiet
Come on,
audience.
guys. Ask
Come
us
on.
questions.
Drop them in there. We want
And
to know.
and when's our next episode?
Our next episode is September 7th, and we will have Brian Stenberg. He will be here, and
Brian's great.
Brian's great. And
Love
so
Brian.
make sure, even if you don't live in Boca, please tune in because we're gonna talk about, running a race and all that kind of stuff. How he's done. This is his second run. So we're gonna have a fun conversation. He's also a lot of fun to chat with. So
Yeah,
definitely tune in.
All right. So have a great night, everybody, and be sure to stay local.
Bye.
Bye.